Hey everyone, welcome back to Pushing Film. I'm Hashim and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about doing some portraits on film at nighttime. Now the context and the reason for me doing this video is because I recently did some portraits at nighttime and I completely shot it on film without even taking a digital camera. Normally this is something I'd be pretty afraid to do, and maybe a lot of other people, because you don't have that fallback, and especially with film being very limited on what ISO you can use, you don't really have much safety. But luckily the reason I was doing this shoot was fairly casual. What happens is that I sometimes do portrait shoots for a magazine called Liminal, and I have the freedom, luckily, to actually shoot film because it kind of fits the aesthetic of the magazine and what a lot of the other photographers use, and they actually pay to cover the film cost and processing, which for me is a really nice benefit. I get to have fun with it, and I still took a few safety shots in the daytime or golden hour before it got dark. So the person I photographed in this particular shoot I'm talking about was Andy, who is a musician. And if you watch my last video, which was the Melbourne to Sydney road trip, that was his music used in that video, which I'm a big fan of. His artist or musician name is Soft Powder, so I highly encourage you guys to check him out. I'm a big fan of his music. It's kind of a dream pop synth vibe, a little bit like Joy Division. I really don't know how to describe it because I'm not much of a music expert, but I highly encourage checking him out. So for this portrait shoot, I used two cameras. One of them was the Nikon FE, which I have back here, and it mainly had the Voigtlander 58mm f1.4 lens on it. And the second camera was the Pentax 645N. I used mainly the Pentax 6.7 105mm f2.4, which is adapted onto the camera here, and I also used the kit 75mm f2.8. And the films I used were Superior 1600 and the FE, which is the same as Natura 1600, which I have a box of here. Sadly, this film is discontinued. This is one of my last rolls of this film. I'm really annoyed that this got discontinued because there's no other 1600 speed color film that I know of. And in the Pentax, I used Lomo 800, which I have a roll of here, and I've used before, including on portrait shoots, and I'm a big fan of this film because it is an affordable 800 speed film, as opposed to something like Kodak Portra 800, which is probably double the price. So as mentioned, I started at golden hour, got a few safety shots during the daytime. That's where I mainly used the Lomo 800 and got some shots by the palm trees that you're seeing here. Quite happy with how they turned out. Now what we wanted for this shoot was that sort of retro, grainy 90s vibe that you kind of see in these photos. The palm trees, kind of a Miami feel maybe to them. And it was kind of good to fit within that aesthetic that Andy presents to market himself through Instagram and other means. So because film being capped off to an ISO like 800 and 1600 still isn't that fast, when it came to shooting at night, now one of the important things you'll need to do if you're shooting at night is to definitely consider using fast prime lenses. So the Nikon, especially with the f1.4, was really useful, which is what I use for the majority of those night shots. And I really like the way that lens renders. Now the only thing is, when you're using manual focus and shooting wide open at something like f1.4, it is worth maybe stopping down to f1.6 or 1.8 if you can, and also see if you can upgrade the focusing screen for your camera. That's what I have done in my Nikon FE, and the first thing I did when I bought that camera was upgrade it to, I think it's called the K3 focusing screen from a later Nikon like the FM3, and it made a really good difference and helped me focus in situations like this at nighttime. And luckily the Pentax 645 does have a pretty decent focusing screen, and I find manual focus on that camera, even though it does have AF, I don't have any AF lenses, I do find focusing on the 645 pretty good. I do miss sometimes, and I'm not sure if there is an easy to upgrade focusing screen for that camera, but it's something I might look into in the future. So you might think using a tripod in this situation could help, but I honestly wouldn't really use a tripod in this situation, because even though you're going to have a steadier camera, if you're going to go that low on a shutter speed to justify using a tripod, your subject, being a person you're taking portraits of, is probably going to move and you're going to get motion blur that way. So the only thing you can really do is to cap your shutter speed off at something that you feel safe hand holding. And for me, that was usually in the realm of a 30th to a 60th, assuming that you make the subject aware of this and maybe, give them a countdown, tell them to kind of stay fairly still during the moments that you're taking the shots, because that way you allow yourself to use a 30th, maybe even a 15th with a steady subject and steady hands. And as we look at these nighttime shots, what you can see is what I like to do is find some kind of ambient lighting in the environment that you're shooting in. So if you're shooting outdoors, for example, on the street, which is what I did, we found some ambient lighting from the guitar store. This was something that I had scouted out beforehand and thought this is definitely going to work because he's a musician. We have that sort of motif of guitars and instruments in the background. Not only that, but the shop had that fluorescent lighting coming through the windows, providing a little bit of backlight and environmental light to create those environmental portraits. Same thing with the shots later on. We use the neon lights coming through from a restaurant window. Now what this means, if you're doing portraits at night and you have this strong back or side light and adding that atmosphere and mood, you might create shadow in front of your subject. You might have them being much darker than the backlight, and you don't want that. So what I would suggest is to always have some kind of fill light. So for me, what I normally do is bring a video light, a nice small video light that you can either mount on camera or, to avoid that, have it off camera. Now, I know you don't always have an assistant, but there's usually ways around it to place the light somewhere. Now, the light I actually used for this latest shoot was one that was sent to me called the Falcon Eyes F7. This is a light that I'd been approached about through some companies to actually review, and I'd said no a couple of times and expressed that my channel is mostly about film, so I wouldn't be able to do an entire video just reviewing your product as much as I do use video lights. But this particular company said to me, that's okay, we're not expecting you to do a whole video about it. Even if you've just mentioned sometime you've used it, we'll send you a copy of the light. And I wasn't expected to give any particular opinion or to do an entire video about it. So I said, sure, send me the light, I'll try it out. So full disclosure, this light was sent to me for free, and it's something I'm actually using right now to light this video. And if you're interested more about this particular video light, stick around till the end of the video and I'll talk about it more then. But a really good benefit in this situation is to find a video light that does have color temperature control and allows you to dial in the light to the same temperature as the background light. So for example, if you have tungsten light coming through the background at 3200 Kelvin, you want to have a video light or LED that you can dial in to about that same temperature, so that when you get your scans, it all looks balanced. You don't have a really warm subject and a cold background, or vice versa. And another tip is that don't go overboard on using a video light. You want that subtle bit of fill light. You still want it to look natural, as if the light could have been from a street lamp or something nearby. I personally don't like the look of a really harsh flash or strobe, for example, unless used very accurately and creatively. I prefer the natural look of ambient lights. With a portrait shoot at nighttime like this, I would prefer to use a subtle bit of additional lighting. And if possible, keep it natural light altogether. So personally, every time I have shot a portrait that I've been happy with at nighttime on film, I probably have used some kind of video light that allows me to change color temperature. Especially on CineStill, I have a couple of shots here where I've done something like multiple exposures and use the video light to fill in the subject and help you deal with those lower ISOs that you're restricted to using film. And I have done some portraits without the aid of a video light. You do sometimes get that grainier look with your subject being in the shadows, but it can still work for that moody look at nighttime, like this shot here on the tram. So the main message of this video is don't be afraid to actually try using film to do portraits at nighttime, something that normally wouldn't allow you to use tripods, but find ways creatively to add a bit of fill light, find light in your environment, use the right films. So I know that films like Superior 1600 and Natura are discontinued, so there's really no point buying these rolls for inflated prices. But what I would suggest is to use something like Lomo 800 or even Portra 800 if you're willing to shell out a bit extra. And I'm not sure, but I think Venus 800 is still available in Japan, or if you buy it through online stores from Japan. And then using those 800 speed films, you can always push them to 1600 or even higher if you like. So pushing something like Venus 800 or Lomo 800 1600 should be no problem, and it gives you that little bit of extra speed that might make the difference. And definitely consider bringing a video light with you on a shoot at nighttime. And if you can find some way to diffuse that light, that's even better. That's one of the things I liked about this F7. So as mentioned before, I talk a little bit more about this light that I mentioned earlier in the video. It's called the Falcon Eyes F7, and you've probably seen a few variations of these floating around online. I know they actually have come out under a few different names because I was approached by different companies previously, but this variation is called the Pocket Light F7, and it comes with a nice screen on the back that shows the exact color temperature, which is something I really liked about it. It was quick and easy to change both the strength of the light and the color temperature to the exact Kelvin I wanted. It does have a whole bunch of RGB light effects, so if I wanted, for example, to key the light into exactly the same shade of red as these neons, I could do that, put in a fill light in red, blue, green. It has crazy effects like police car and stuff that I'm not sure I imagine myself using. Maybe for video you could use some of those effects, but personally I did really like how it worked for photo shoots. I've actually taken it to a wedding. I like that it's pretty slim and compact, and it charges via USB-C, which is becoming the standard of a lot of my other devices. And one of the best things I liked about it is that it includes the diffuser and the grid, and it all comes in this nice little carry case. So there's a bunch of accessories that also come included in here. The camera mount, the charging cable, and a lot of other lights don't actually include this stuff. So one of my other video lights is a smaller light by Glance, but I found this one a lot slimmer, easier to use, and with those extra accessories like the honeycomb grid, which I'm using right now as my main light to light this video, makes it quick and easy to get that little bit of extra fill light. Another great thing I liked about this particular light is that it is magnetic. I'm seeing that's a trend with a lot of the new lights coming out on the market right now, like the Aputure. So at the moment, the way I have it right now is just magnetically attached to the shelf behind the camera. And this is really handy when you don't have an assistant and there are metal objects that you can clip it to. So that is a restricting factor, but it is a nice little touch that this light offered. But I wasn't paid to say anything in particular. I did look at the price of these online. One of the drawbacks I think of this particular light system is it does seem to be a little bit pricey. I would still say it's fairly worth it if you think you'll use it a lot, and because it does include that diffuser and the grid, so it's actually not bad. And if you shop around for a deal, I can't speak for the other variations of this light, but the one I've got is the F7, so I'll have a link for that in the description, which is an affiliate link. So if you're not aware, with the affiliate links that I put in the video, I do get a small commission from any purchases made using those links. It doesn't cost you any more, but it is a small way that you can help support the channel, so I definitely appreciate it. So I'll wrap the video up there, and for anyone who's in Melbourne, I just want to let you know, if you're watching this video in November or December before the 20th, I am organizing a photo walk and meetup on the 20th of December 2019. So if you're watching this video fairly shortly after it came out, definitely check out our Instagram page, which has more information on this meetup. I'm actually trying to encourage a print swap to happen through this meetup as well. So as I've mentioned before on the channel, I'm a big fan of printing my work, and I think that a lot of people should too. So if you're free and you're in Melbourne, it'd be a great opportunity to meet up with some of you guys, do a photo walk, a print swap, and that's going to happen on the 20th of December in St Kilda here in Melbourne. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next episode of Pushing Film. Bye.